Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, our live demonstration, CyberSaint Crosswalking CIS Top 18 to ISO 27001. My name is Ethan Bresnahan. I'm the Marketing Director here at CyberSaint, and today I'm excited to be joined by CyberSaint VP of Solutions Architecture, Stephen Torino, and Senior Sales Engineer, Michael Blumrich. We're so glad that you can join us for today's webinar, and with that, I will hand things off to Steve.
Hi, my name is Steve Torino, and I'm Vice President of Solution Architecture here at CyberSaint. I want to thank you for attending this webinar and also provide some background information before we jump into a demonstration of the solution. Crosswalking has been a longstanding challenge in the industry. The reality is that organizations are subject to more than one cybersecurity framework or standard of practice, depending on things like the jurisdictions where they do business, the industries in which they participate, and the types of customers with whom they wish to do business. Most of these standards are covering domains and controls that overlap, at least to some extent. And in theory, this overlap should make things easier to the extent that we can kind of be sure we comply with the control from one framework. We should be able to map it to controls from another framework and know that we've satisfied that requirement as well. In practice, it's a bit more complicated. Although the controls across two or more frameworks may cover similar content, they often have subtle differences. So for example, let's take vulnerability scanning as an example. A framework like NIST might allow for the frequency of vulnerability scanning to be customized to an organization-defined frequency, whereas the corresponding control from another framework may specify the frequency at which vulnerability scans are to be run, so something like once a week or once a month. Yes, those controls do map to each other, but the subtle difference in frequency makes them not an exact match. Another example could be control inheritance. So most of us by now are probably using some cloud services to operate our business. One of the benefits that comes with that is inheriting certain security controls, such as server patching and an infrastructure as a service model, for example. However, there are other controls for which a shared accountability model applies. In other words, we might inherit part of a control from a CSP, but still have to demonstrate requirements around things like maybe access controller configurations in-house. So what's really critical here is to understand the gap between any two frameworks. And organizations have taken various approaches to finding these gaps or doing crosswalks in order to make their lives easier, because as anybody who's done these exercises knows, it can be really challenging and time consuming. Larger, more complex organizations might roll out something like a large common controls framework, or basically a superset of sorts that can be manually applied across dozens or hundreds of frameworks even. And others might try a method like to rely on the limited set of publicly available crosswalks that are published by authoritative sources like CIS, AICPA, even the informative references to the CSF from NIST. Unfortunately, this is very limited and not available for most frameworks at all. And yet others might work with consultants, bring consultants in and have an engagement to do the crosswalking that they need. What you're going to see today is a demonstration of CyberSaint's unique approach to crosswalking. So whether it's an example of how we can leverage pre-published templates to automate those industry accepted mappings just at the click of a button, or how to use our patented natural language processing technology to create your own templates from any framework to any other framework by identifying control associations with AI provided confidence levels, you're going to see a real world solution that's been custom built to automate the manual and time consuming process of crosswalking controls across frameworks. I hope you enjoy the demo.
In order to complete a crosswalk within the CyberStrong platform, we're first going to go to the administration area. We can do this by clicking on the administration icon here in the upper right-hand corner. This is by default going to take you to the Manage Assessments page. In order to get things started with the crosswalk, first you need to identify which assessment you're going to be crosswalking from. In this case, I'm going to be crosswalking from the CIS Top 18 with subcontrols assessment. And then from here, to start the crosswalk process, we're going to go over here to the right in the actions column and click on the crosswalk assessment icon. Now you'll be taken to the page where you're able to select which framework you want to crosswalk into and essentially generate that assessment from. So in this case, I'm going to be crosswalking from the CIS Top 18, and I'm going to be crosswalking into ISO 27001. So I'll click on that box, and it's going to take me to the mapping templates page. So this is where you can select from a template created from a crosswalk template standpoint. You can also choose mappings over 80%, over 90%, and these percentages are in reference to the confidence score from our natural language processing models that we leverage. In this case, I'm going to choose the empty template and go from there. So I select empty template, and now I can essentially do one of two things. I can go control by control and leverage that confidence score to select my mappings manually, or I can click add top mappings for each control. And this is really going to do a lot for me automatically. Next, I can review those mappings, and I can also add additional mappings if I so choose. I can, remove mappings, go control by control. I can really go and be as diligent on this as I want to. Or I can go to my next and final step. So in this case, I'm going to go next step. And the only thing that you'll need to do from here is name the new assessment. And then make a selection of whether you want to sync the crosswalk or not. And what this means is it would tie the parent assessment to the child assessment to where any changes you make at the parent level would roll down to the child. For right now, I'm not going to sync this, but I will show you what a synced assessment and a synced crosswalk looks like momentarily. From here, I'm going to submit our crosswalk. And you can see here that we have a 60% project completed assessment based on our crosswalk from CIS to ISO. Between the confidence scores, the mapping, as well as the crosswalk history, this process is very auditable. So you can see here, I still have the ability to make changes at this assessment level, but I can see the crosswalk history and how these overarching controls map on policy security. The only difference between this and a synced crosswalk and a synced assessment is that interaction at the child assessment level. So if I do go to a synced assessment, I still have the ability to make changes at the child level. However, it's just going to take one additional step. So I can either go and unsync the control to edit it, or if I go to crosswalk history, this is going to take me to the parent assessment. And if I make adjustments at the parent assessment level, these are automatically going to roll down to the child assessment. So whether you are leveraging a synced crosswalk or an unsynced crosswalk, the process really allows you to be more efficient and effective when it comes to assessing against multiple frameworks within your organization.
Thank you everyone for attending today's webinar. As always, if you're interested in learning more about CyberSaint's AI-backed crosswalking capabilities, please feel free to reach out info@cybersaint.io or visit us at cybersaint.io. We'll see you soon.